Hello, this is the Science Bloggers Podcast, the show where we talk to science bloggers, YouTubers, and podcasters about their work in science and science communication. This is our third episode, and joining me today is Anastasia Bodnar. Anastasia is a science communicator, and she's here to tell us about a project, SciMoms. SciMoms, or Science Moms, is a blog, but it's also a group of science communicators who are focused on bringing evidence-based science to parenting. So, hello, Anastasia. How are you?
I'm great. How are you today?
I am fine. So, why don't you tell our listeners something about yourself?
Sure. Well, I've been doing science communication for about 10 years since I started grad school. I'm a plant geneticist by training, and I also have a background in sustainable agriculture and public health. And I'm excited to talk to you today about one of my newest projects, which is SciMoms.
What exactly is SciMoms?
So we started out as individual science communicators, and each of us has our own story of how we became a science communicator and how we translated that into, what we do as mothers. Then another person named Natalie Newell decided that there needed to be a documentary about us called Science Moms. So she did a Kickstarter, and she traveled around the country to meet each of us. And you can now find that resulting documentary. It's about 30 minutes long on YouTube, and you can watch it for free.
Okay. So how did you come together before SciMoms was a thing, or did coming together come afterwards?
So before the documentary, each of us had met, most of us had met each other before. There's 6 of us total, including Natalie. And some of us have met each other before, at least online. And before the movie was filmed, we had all gotten together to write a letter called Moms for GMOs, where, we're trying to counter some of the celebrity voices out there where celebrity moms are saying GMOs are bad, pesticides are bad, all these things, and they're not including a lot of science or nuance into their positions, which we'd expect for celebrities for the most part. So some of us did know each other before we wrote the letter. But after the film, we decided that we really enjoyed working together and that we wanted to continue a project. And so we started SciMoms.com and have been blogging together and doing some other activities. There's a comic strip that we're working on, things like that.
Okay, that sounds cool. Because, I have looked at the film that you made, and, one of the things that I really liked, and I guess this probably relates to my own blog, Science versus Hollywood, is how kind of geeky you get with popular culture references.
Yeah.
So I believe one mom, I think it was Kevin, who goes like, "Nature will kill you," and I was just thinking, that was Jurassic Park, right? It's that part in the book, at least it's in the book where Ellie Sattler, she's looking at this leaf, and she's like, "Why are they putting this in here? Don't they know that nature came up with chemical warfare, and nature will kill you?" And there's just one part that I really liked about it,
Yeah, I think that all of us are really into science fiction and science and popular culture. There's quite a few Buffy fans among us. So one of our blog posts mentioned Double Meat.
Right. And
there's been a couple of different things that we've done around science fiction. I'm sure there will be plenty more. I was a moderator, and I invited Jenny, which is one of the other SciMoms, to speak at a panel at National Science Fiction Convention in DC. So I'd love to do more things like that. I think that using that popular culture angle to discuss science is just really smart.
Well, because when you think about it, right, for many people, popular culture is how they're unfortunately exposed to science, right?
It's true.
And unfortunately, when they portray a scientist, it's usually a white male. And I think that is a disservice because, the field of science is a diverse one. It's a lot of people working within there, So maybe we need to get producers and directors to change who they portray in these roles.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's, if you have a scientist in a movie, there's no reason why it shouldn't be a person of color or, a disabled person or LGBT or anything other than the stereotypical white old man, right?
Yes, old. I didn't want to say old, but yeah, you're right. Old.
I mean, usually. And, that's a problem in real life, too. There's, I can't remember what the hashtag is on Twitter, but, when you go to a conference and there's a panel of scientists and they all look almost identical, even down to their outfits, that's not okay. There's no representation of the diversity that we have in science there.
Well, I think you also talked to about, the personality types in science. And I don't think many people realize if you're a scientist, the personality types are just as diverse as in any work environment, right?
Definitely.
It's just we just like science. There are jocks in a science lab. There are I know crazy free climbers.
Yeah, there's beauty queens. There's parents. I mean, we're all here doing science. And I think that's really important because we can each speak to our own groups. And that's what we're trying to do with SciMoms. There hasn't really been obviously there's lots of scientists that are parents. We all have our, families and our, life choices and things like that. But there hasn't really been a whole lot of targeted, we're scientists and we're moms and we'd like to talk to you about science. So, but that's not the only one. There's, some really well-known Instagrammers who talk about beauty and fashion and add their science to it, and things like that. And I think that's really important to speak to people from a place that, they're already interested in and then add the science to it.
That's true. I agree with you. So talking to other mothers is obviously important to the six of you. Why is that so important?
Well, okay, so we each have our origin story, but it really comes down to there's just so much misinformation that's being marketed towards mothers in particular. Moms buy most of the groceries, so it makes sense that commercial marketing is going to be targeting towards mothers, as well as we're making most of the purchasing decisions of things that are coming into our home. So whether it's something like essential oils or organic food or, some new cleaning product, the person that you're marketing to is usually a mother. So we get bombarded with these messages that are often not based in science. So we think it's really important to counter some of that misinformation. But it's not just coming from professional marketers. There's also all these Facebook pages about pseudoscience. Of course, there's anti-vaccine, anti-GMO. There's so much misinformation about the things we buy coming from folks who don't necessarily sell something, or people who are secretly selling something on the side. Like we've got Food Babe, who started out with just affiliate links.
Oh, yeah.
And she was, those dreaded affiliate links. People who are trying to gain more readers by being sensationalist so that people will click on those products and buy them, and then they get a small kickback. But then, I think Food Babe's gone on to now she's selling like her own line of products. It's hard to get away from all that stuff. And if we can just be like a tiny counter to all of that, then we've accomplished our goal.
Yeah. The one thing that they're really great at is getting their site, getting their articles up listed on Google search results. And, to a degree, and I think we talked about this to some degree in the group, is that they are absolutely killing us in that regard, right? So their articles get up and, we write something and it's not in the first 2 pages, and it's probably something we have to learn to do better, And
I totally agree with you there.
But, to go back to Food Babe and, these other groups, a lot of these are like very, strong marketing. They have a strong marketing team behind them to get their message out, unfortunately. I don't want to sound, unfortunately. So
yeah,
it's something we have to learn to do better.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential here for science communicators to get our message out more effectively. One thing that we've been working on with the SciMoms, and it's such a challenge, is before we publish something on our own website, we're trying to remember to go and work with the media first. And it's really hard because we all kind of came up with blogging as it happened. And our first instinct is still, I wrote something, I'm going to put it on my blog. But our blog's not that big yet. And, most of the people who read our blog still are people that have interacted with us on social media already. So writing something and publishing on our blog isn't getting it out there. We're very aware of that fact. And so we need to be better about talking to editors and shopping our stories around and trying to get it published somewhere, even if it's an online source like Huffington Post lifestyle page, because that's going to have more readership than our own blog. And then we can always, either republish or publish a blurb and then, send people
put a
back.
link or something. And, get those search engine spiders, coming to your website.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Because it's all about like making sure that there are sites that are reputable that have to link back to your own page, and that will help you increase in the search ranking. But it's hard because the grand majority of science communicators are doing this part-time. We all have real jobs, or other things that we're doing. So we don't have a marketing team, a public relations team to be figuring all this stuff out for us. And we're trying to learn this as a hobby, or something that we're passionate about, but it's really hard.
It is. And, I think, what the thing that most people miss, especially with what blogs like yours do, you're basically on the front lines of many of these things, in terms of interacting with people. So being able to get that message out effectively to as many people as possible is so important, right? So it's like Huffington Post. Yes, a lot of people go there. A lot of people read their articles. They are reputable, but the people that you are reaching out to don't necessarily go there. And, that's the problem,
Yeah.
So how long has the blog been around?
I think we're almost at our second year of having the project exist. So we're still young and still working on it.
So how do a lot of the articles, on GMOs, on vaccines are fear-based. How do you, as a science communicator, bring sense and rationality and information to a debate that people will listen to?
It's such a challenge because our message is it's not getting to people's lizard brain like the scary articles are. So on the blog, we're trying to show parents how you don't have to be scared of certain things. And here are some things that maybe you should be worried about. So, for example, we had an article about gun safety that actually ended up being far less controversial than we expected, which I think means we wrote it well. Because, you shouldn't be freaking out over your kid not eating organic strawberries, but you should be freaking out a little bit of whether their friends' houses are safe with regard to having guns properly stored in their home. So we're sort of trying to redirect the fear to an appropriate subject matter. Another one that we talked about was trampolines. Trampolines are a huge risk that parents don't really think about. We let our kids go to trampoline parks and play in bouncy houses, but that's one of the most common sources for childhood injury.
Yeah, I remember reading the gun article. I checked it out, but yeah, you're right. It's the things that we should be most afraid of, or the things that studies shows like, yeah, this is really dangerous, we should be concerned about that, are the things we're not necessarily afraid of. And it's sort of amazing, when you think about it.
Humans are terrible at assessing risk. We identify hazards fairly well, but we don't rank them appropriately. We think things that are incredibly low risk are really scary, and things that actually are pretty high risk we don't treat with as much care as we should. So I think that's what we're trying to do on the blog, is just sort of like help people learn about risk and recalibrate how they treat these different things. But we're still not trying to scare anybody. Like in the article, it's like, yes, use trampolines, but here are some guidelines on how to, be more careful about it and make sure that your child has less of a risk of breaking a bone while using a trampoline. So we'd like for people to inoculate themselves against the scare tactics by reading our articles about risk and prioritization of risk.
Well, hopefully you can counter the fear that is out there.
Yeah.
So, from watching the video, right, it seems like you also attend rallies, trying to combat that misinformation that's out there. So how has that experience been for the six of you?
They're so hard. I mean, humans in general, most of us don't like confrontation, right? So going and putting yourselves out there at a rally or that type of event where people are, their whole reason for being there is because they're anti-vaccine or anti-GMOs or whatever, is really hard and really stressful. I went to one, and I kind of just hid behind the rest of my group because it was just like, I can't even do this.
Yeah, I think like in the video, there's like one confrontation that just looked crazy.
Yeah, I think that was Jenny. Yeah.
Yes, I think Jenny talked about it, and I think it's like one woman is attacking her and she was like, couldn't take it anymore or something.
Yeah, she just kind of snapped. Like that lady was being really mean. So to me, I feel like, I mean, if people want to do that, then that's great. If you have the, fortitude to go and debate people in public, then go for it. But to me, it's like, no one's going to change their minds, right? Like if somebody's whole shtick is that they are anti-vaccine and they're going to anti-vaccine rallies and whatever, then no one's going to be able to convince them otherwise. Or it's at least you've got like a really steep hill there. So we try to be more strategic about what we do. And so one example of that, like for me, is that I won't do a debate. Like I feel like debates are not useful. Just like the whole like rhetoric around debates and how, someone wins and someone loses, like that's not science, right?
Right.
There's no winner in science. And so for me, I'm much more interested in panel discussions and things like that, where, you're having a conversation and then people can take that information and think about it on their own. You're encouraging critical thinking amongst the people who are watching. And I think that we try to do that online as well. So comments are open on the SciMoms Facebook page. And we have had a couple of people show up and say some kind of scary things about it. Vaccines has been the big sticking point. Breastfeeding is another one. I would definitely say that all of us SciMoms are in the fed is best category, right? If you have a baby.
Yeah.
Breastfeeding has some advantages, but they're not that big, especially because we all live in a country that has clean water. It's a little bit of a different situation if you don't have access to clean water. But anyway, so we've had some pretty nasty comments about this controversial stance that feeding your baby is good. It's very strange. But anyway, so we try to be very level-headed and provide evidence and encourage people to read that evidence and find the information on their own without necessarily going head-to-head with someone, because the productive thing is having someone who's observing the conversation see that we're staying calm and providing useful sources, if that makes sense.
Yeah, actually it does. I think like some of the group members who have, I guess you can call them skeptical blogs, right?
Yeah.
In that group, that's one of the things that I think people say. There's this group that's fanatical. No matter what you say, their minds are not going to be changed, right? But it's the quiet ones who are just looking and not necessarily responding, who are kind of processing and taking this information. The fence sitters, if you want to call them, who you can sway to your side.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, that makes me think about something that I'm a big proponent of is science communication, where you are. Some of our biggest success stories happen in real life. For example, you overhear, your fitness instructor saying something about supplements. Well, that could be an opportunity to say, actually, the science shows that most of us don't need supplements if we don't have a diagnosed deficiency. It's okay to not spend $30 a month on vitamins. And just taking those opportunities as they come with people who already know you is probably going to be more effective than arguing online.
I can't agree more, because unfortunately the fanatics, they have really loud voices. It's almost ridiculous. Yeah. So it's just say what you need to say and convince the people that can be convinced.
Yeah. And, all the research on trust shows that these online interactions, some people are convinced. I've seen lots of people who have said, I used to believe this way, But then I, did my research online and I started talking to, some skeptical people, and, now I've changed my mind. I've joined the team of skeptics or whatever. Okay, great. But there's so many more people that's not going to happen. And so, we want to provide resources for people to use out in their communities. If you're in a church group and somebody talks about, something, then, share resources from our blog that we've written targeting normal, average people. Wherever you are, someone's talking about the pseudoscience. I guarantee it. Essential oils are pretty much everywhere. Chiropractic, there's so many things, especially in the health and food realms, that taking those opportunities to talk to our friends, family, and acquaintances, so that they stop spreading misinformation and potentially even start sharing evidence-based information, that's a huge victory.
Yes, hopefully that's what happens. So how has your outreach efforts been working so far to get people interested, like what you just described, say like a church group, get them to share your content?
It's slow going. I think that, so I'm going to use a funny example, I guess. So the Food Babe calls her followers the Food Babe Army, right?
Oh my God.
I know there's some pretty weird stuff, and I don't mean to harp on just Food Babe. There's lots of other ones that do similar things, right? But she specifically calls it the Food Babe Army, and her followers will go out and share misinformation with other people, and you see that with quite a few of these pseudoscience personalities and groups. So what I would like to have is parents and others, of course, the more the merrier, sharing SciMoms content, inviting people to go back to our site, and even potentially becoming SciMoms and Sci parents and joining our team to produce more content of this type, so that it's easier to share that information with others. So personally, I've done that I've joined my local groups where I live. I've joined the attachment parenting group, the baby wearing group, the local moms catch-all group. And part of that is just because I want to meet people in my community. But I'm also interested in, if somebody brings up something, that's an opportunity for me to say, hey, you might want to be careful about that. Please see a registered dietitian before taking, food advice for your disabled child from some crank online, things like that. And because I'm in those groups, I'm making comments regularly. Some of the people I know in person, that makes my voice there more effective. But that's only in my local community. I can do that. I only have so much reach there. But if we all do that in our local communities, then that would be really powerful.
Yeah, I agree. So what do you see, as the future of SciMoms as a blog or as a group? What do you think it's going to look like?
Yeah. So, one of our first steps is we have plans to incorporate and become an official nonprofit. We're hoping to write a book in the next year or two,
awesome.
Which I think will increase our reach, and then do some book tours in our respective areas across the country. We'd like to do more connecting with different types of medical professionals and other people that have a lot of interaction with people in their own communities. And like I said, I think eventually we'd like to have more people on board. Each of us has our own career and different things going on, and producing a lot of content is difficult. So we're kind of in the process of developing an editorial system, so that if someone wants to submit a guest post or become a blogger with us, that we have a system to do that fairly and to avoid having, each of us do a lot of editing work. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think we'd really like to grow and make this information available to more people. I think that science blogging is so important and so cool, and I love science communication so much, but I do fear that most of us are talking to ourselves most of the time. So we want to make a dedicated effort to break out and not just talk to people who are already interested in science and do something different.
Sounds like a plan, and hopefully, there's one of the reasons why the group exists is, we can get these skills to really get our message, whatever that message is, out, because I think, what science bloggers do is so important, right? And it's a shame that, we don't have the reach that we need or deserve, but hopefully that can change. And hopefully in the future we can talk more about, where SciMoms is and how things are going.
Yeah. Hopefully we can talk again in a year or so, and I'll be able to say, look how much we've grown.
I look forward to it. So is there anything else you'd like to say to our listeners?
I think the main thing would be get involved in your community. It can be a little scary at first, but people like learning about science. And so whatever that means for you, if it's talking to local Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts troops, or giving a talk at your local library, going to the Rotary Club, any of those things, just getting involved and sharing whatever you're passionate about, can be a really good experience, both for yourself, like building your own CV and your experience, but also in getting the word out, getting people excited about science.
Sounds like excellent advice.
Thanks.
Thank you for talking with me. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a lot of fun.
And
thanks.
Hopefully we'll do it again.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
That was Anastasia Bodnar. If you'd like to learn more about the work Anastasia and the other SciMoms are doing, you should visit their blog. You should also check out the SciMoms movie on YouTube. Links are provided in the show notes. The Science Bloggers is a community of science communicators. If you're a science blogger, YouTuber, or podcaster, feel free to check out our Facebook group. If you like interesting science content, you should stop by our Facebook page. I am David Latchman, and I would like to thank you for joining us on our first day. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new in science and science communication, and will join us next week for our next episode.